Okay. Now, so in Euler buckling, what we had done is just we see that if there is a bar, okay, and you apply a load like this, compressive load, then this bar will fail by compressive stress, and that we call this as a crushing stress. It will crush the rod, just like the chalk, the example we had taken. Take a small chalk and press it in between your fingers, it will crush. Okay, but when we in going when suppose the load is same and you gonna increase the length. Okay, now we know that crushing stress is P by area, so it no any length factor is coming. But when we gonna increase the length of the bar, so what will happen is uh, suppose the length is increased. Now we apply the load. So take example of your refill. Just example I had taken refill of your pen. Take out that refill, place it in between your fingers and just apply the force. You will notice that a small amount of force can easily buckle the your refill. So what that means, now the length factor will describe the buckling, but that wasn't been used in crushing stress, or that formula that we used earlier. Then Euler suggested that the critical load for the buckling is, or buckling is also known as bending, because it is a type of bending. So he suggested that there is a formula that is derived from the expression, but you need not to go to derivations. Just remember that P is critical is equal to pi square EI upon LE square. Now what is LE? So LE is depend on the this value depends on the boundary conditions. What are the boundary conditions? So suppose what are the end conditions that required? Now suppose three boundary condition are hinged boundary condition, fixed boundary condition, and free end. So in all these three conditions, we have a combination. So first is hinged and hinged, means both ends are hinged, both ends are fixed. Okay. Now a third one is hinged and fixed, and the fourth one is free and fixed. Okay. These are the four conditions for the buckling, and for hinged and hinged, your LE is equal to L, that is length of the column. This is equivalent length. So in earlier lecture I described that, so I'm going to revise it. I hope everyone knows LE is equal to L. For fixed and fixed, LE is equal to L by 2. Okay. Now for hinged and fixed, LE is equal to L by root 2. And for free and fixed, LE is equal to 2L. So you need to remember these things. Now, few things as what is uh, what is the meaning of I that I discussed is I should be around such planes, about such planes. So there are so there are three axes, X, Y, and Z. Now one is the direction of, so one axis is a direction of force. Now it can bend in either X direction, or suppose this is Y and I'm applying force in Y direction, so it can bend in X direction or Z direction. Any so the X means we can say that we have to take such axes, or we have to take such I which is minimum in two, means that if we apply P load, so buckling can be happen in this way, or if we just take it in a 3D portion, then buckling can also happen in other plane also. So we need to take that, and which is I minimum. So I explained that in earlier lecture. So what is I minimum for the condition? Now just take an example of a rectangle. Square, for a square, where it is, for a square, this axis and this axis are same, because suppose this is I1, this is I2. I1 is equal to I2 is equal to 1 by 12 a cube. But for rectangle, this I and this I is not same. What is the meaning of that? So suppose this is 1, this axis, this is 2 axis, this is B and this is D, and you know that B is less than D. Now this is suppose I1, this is I2. You can see that I1 is the value I'm writing. I1 is 1 by 12 uh, dB cube, and I2 is 1 by 12 BD cube. Now you as you know, B is less than D. So this value I2 is greater than I1, means I1 is less than I2. Now buckling will can take place around the I1 plane. So that's why you need to take the minimum of the two. So this was the condition. And for the minimum length, I just explained you from the graph, that is sorry, that is P versus length. That is this graph you can obtain that this is the length, that is a critical length, up to above which we can consider a column as long column, and below which we can consider the column as short column. Okay. Now long column, the Euler, we apply the condition of Euler buckling because Euler buckling considered only for long columns, and for short columns we apply only the concept of crushing stress, and we assume that the short column will not buckle and it will only fail by the crushing stress. So this is a point that is continuous in between. So what is the minimum length for which buckling can occur? Minimum length for which buckling can occur is sigma critical into area. This is your P force for crushing stress, and that is equal to pi square EI upon LE square. So from this we can obtain the length of the what is the minimum length. So I'm writing is L minimum, that is pi square EI upon sigma crushing into area, and you can also write in terms of radius of gyration or whatever you want. So this is the minimum length for your long column case to be applied. And just for example, for steel, your Le by K, that is slenderness ratio, is 80, and that means be above 80 you can consider the column as a long column, and below 80 you can consider the column as short column. So that was your case earlier. Now I'm going to do the few questions. So first, and one more thing, Rankine formula. So Rankine suggested that since both are the conditions are coming together, we can write this as 1 upon P of Rankine is equal to 1 of P of crushing plus 1 of P of Euler. That means take the Euler load, take the crushing stress, and you can obtain the Rankine critical load that is critical for your column. So you need not to consider what we say short column or long column. You can directly apply this formula. So that was we discussed earlier. So we are going to discuss the concept of means questions of Euler's. So these are from gate ME 88 to around 2019. So yeah, the first question is given. I hope I am audible. My screen is okay. So just give me a chat box. Yeah, okay. Then I will proceed. Uh, just write the message. Everything is okay. So I am going ahead. Hello. Can you write in chat box? Are you seeing my screen? Okay. 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 Let's the first question is the question number one. It is given that if the length of the column is doubled, the critical load becomes. So just apply the formula. P critical is equal to pi square EI upon LE square. So if something is doubled, the critical load will be 1 by 4 times. So 1 by 4th of the original value. Okay. For the case of a slender column of length L and flexural rigidity EI built at its base, okay, built in at its base and free at the top, the Euler buckling load. So that this is a condition. Oh, so the condition is given built in base, the built in at its base. That is the condition of fixed end. Okay, and the second is given free end. So it is fixed free condition. So you know, you remember LE is equal to L by root 2. No, not L by root 2. Sorry, it is 2L. It is 2L. So if you put that value, though, so your value will be P critical is equal to pi square EI upon 4L square. So the value will be this option number D. Now the next question is, so I am just going let us take a time. A pin-ended column of length L, modulus of elasticity E, second moment of cross-section area I is loaded centrally by a compressive P. The critical buckling load is, so it is a pin-ended column. So both ends are pinned. So same value, LE is equal to L. So the critical load would be pi square EI upon LE square. So the value is pi square EI upon LE square. For a long slender column of uniform cross section, the ratio of critical buckling load for the case when both ends clamped to the case when both ends hinged. So means both end fixed to the ratio of both end clamped. Sorry, not clamped, both end hinged. So you know that for formula P critical is equal to that formula. So 1 upon LE square, that is a term that came. And for both end fixed, LE is equal to L by 2. And for both end hinged, LE is equal to L. So if you write it for P critical 1 by P critical 2, it is around, I can say it is 4, I think. Yeah, it will be a 4. So answer is C. So just check it. It is coming 4 or 1 by 4. Please check it. Is it okay? I hope it is okay. So next question. Consider a steel given Young modulus. It is given question number 5. Hinged at both ends. So now height is given, cross section is given, and you can see that now the cross section is rectangle. So what you need to do is we need to find the lower Euler buckling. So you can see that now we need to take the I, that is 1 by 12 into that is 20 into 10 raised to the power 3. This is your I minimum. Okay. Now if you solve for the this is given both ends are hinged. So P critical is equal to pi square EI upon L square, and you just substitute the value, and your I is this one because the next I will be greater than this I. So I minimum you need to take for the lower critical load, and your option would be around 1100 Newton. Option around this. So exactly you can get, or it is around that. Now the next question is a steel column of rectangular cross section, again given rectangular cross section. So that's why I asked you to obtain the minimum, and the length is given simply supported at both ends. So simply supported means both ends are hinged. Now E is given, you need to find the critical axial load. So since simply supported condition is given, so it is for the just wait a sec. Uh, for this the answer is around, just wait a second, for this the answer is around 333, around 333 Newton. And for here you can see that here you also take I minimum is equal to 1 by 12 into 10 raised to the power 3 into 15. This is your I, and both ends are simply supported. So LE is equal to L, and you just substitute and solve it. The value would come 1.1 kilonewton. The next question is the minimum axial compressive load P required to initiate buckling. So you can see that now the hinge point, the graph is showing like this. So it is asking about this. What is the minimum axial compressive load P required to initiate buckling for a pin? So you can just for a pinned end. So it is asking for pinned and pinned both ends. So P critical is equal to pi square EI upon LE square. So same formula because LE is equal to L. So your answer would be answer B. Next question is here. It is given the rods PQ of. I hope my screen is visible. Let me zoom it a little bit. Okay. So it is given the rod PQ of length L and with flexural rigidity EI is hinged at both ends. What is the minimum force expected to buckle? Okay. Now so first of all, there are two types of forces. So you need to resolve the force along. Suppose I am drawing this figure here again. Okay, and now it is given both ends are hinged, and the rod is given, and your this is rod PQ, this is your angle 45 degree, and this is a force, that is F is applied. Now what it is given is what is the minimum? First of all, the buckling is caused by the this force. Okay, suppose this force, that is F1. So you need to resolve this force along this direction. So this is 45. So any component, if you take this F, the same F, so it will be here. You can say F cos 45 around this direction, and around this direction it will be F sin 45. Okay, now but better to resolve it along the just wait a sec. Okay, now the, the reaction force along this is, so suppose here the reaction force is around this direction, and here the reaction force is along this direction. And if you resolve the component, the one component would come, so suppose this is your T force. I am supposing that this is your my T force. So this T force has two components, this F and this reaction. Okay, I am going that way. If you get in that way also, that is also the same. So this T, so this is my T. T cos 45 is your F. Okay, and T sin 45 is your R. So T cos 45 is my F, and T sin 45 is my R. Okay, now just put it the value, get the value of T, that is F root 2, and your R is also F root 2. Okay, F root 2. Now what we go is, because you know the length. Okay, you know the length. Now that you can simplify the condition like this. This is a rod, this is your length, and a force of root 2 F is applying. What is the critical? So both ends are hinged, so you can take like this. And now you can simply put the equation P critical is equal to pi square EI upon LE square. So minimum force it is asked. So just put P critical is equal to F root 2. So you can just F root 2 is equal to pi square EI upon LE square, and its value is F by root 2, this value. Now the next question is, a column has a rectangular cross section of this 10 mm and 20 mm, length is given. What is the slenderness ratio of the column? So it is asked what is the slenderness ratio. I explained you, that is it is LE by K. Now what is K? So you need to find K first. How you find K? K is I by A, root over I by A, because you know I is equal to AK square. So I by A root over K. So first of all, what is I? So it is given 1 by 12 into 20 into 10 raised to the power 3. This is your I, and your area is 10 into 20. Now if you divide this I by A and you get the value, it is around 100 by 12, root over 100 by 12. So let me just solve it. 100 over 12 root over. So your radius of gyration is about radius of gyration is about 2.8 mm. Now your LE by K value is around 1 meter, that is 1000 divided by 2.8. Now the value is, if you divide just by value, it is 346. So value is 346. Your answer B is right. Okay. Now we are going with the next question. It is given initially stress-free massless elastic beam of length L, cross section D, is held fixed between two walls. It is given beam material E, thermal coefficient alpha, and if beam is slowly and uniformly heated, the temperature required to cause the beam to buckle. So first of all, it is a stress problem, and it is given both ends are fixed. Okay, you can see that both ends are fixed. So your LE should be L by 2. Okay. If any problem in my voice, please call me. Please just ask me to just say it clearly. because I'm getting little bit deep. Now, what it is given, so your P critical, where it is, P critical is equal to pi square EI upon your LE square, it is L by 2. So what is L by 2? Your 4 L square. And now if you divide just, uh, if you just divide it by, so, and your stress for the, your stress for the thermal expansion is sigma is equal to E alpha delta T. Now, if you multiply it with area, you can get the means what we can say force, pressure, sorry, force, that is E alpha delta T into area. Now, this is your this is your this is your P force and this is a P critical. This need to be equal to cause the buckling by the thermal expansion. Then E alpha delta T into area is equal to pi square EI upon LE square. So you can see that what is it is given, delta T is inversely proportional to L square. Okay, and now it is asking about the diameter. What is the relation between diameter? So uh, it is given I value is d raised to power 4 and your area is d square. So it is d square by LE square. So your option B is correct. Okay, now answer question 4. It is given a square cross section wooden column of length is pinned at both ends, so both are pinned joints. Young modulus is given, allowable compressive stress is given, and given column need to support a axial compressive load. It is also given. Factor of safety is given. The computation of Euler buckling load, the minimum cross section area is. What is the minimum cross section area? It is asking. So first of all, compressive stress is given. Column needs to support this and compressive load is given. So what you need to do is, what is the P critical? First of all, you need to know that. So it need to support 200 kilonewton, but factor of safety is given 2. So so what would be the value of P critical? P critical is should be 2 into 200. Why? Because it is giving, it need to support 200 kilonewton, but critical load should be, you know, that FOS is equal to what we said, yield or maximum divided by allowable. So allowable value is 200. Your maximum you need to find. So you need to multiply this value with 2. So it is 2 into 200 kilonewton, that is into 1000. If you write it in Newton, it is around 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5. Okay. And that should be equal to pi square EI upon LE square. And you know, in I, you get the value as uh, just you can solve it like 1 by 12 a raised to the power 4, and you just take a square root and solve it. You can get the a value, and you just multiply with a means it's just square it, because area is you have to ask. So the area would be around what we say, this is around 2 into 10 raised to the power 5 square. So this would be your area. Okay, so your area would be 2 into 10 raised to the power 5 square. Now the next question is, consider a prismatic straight beam, and it is also given the minimum temperature required to cause Euler buckling. So you can see how the question are changing now. So first of all, you know that sigma is equal to E alpha delta T, and if you multiply it with area, you get the force, and force is equal to pi square EI upon LE square. So what is the minimum temperature rise? So you need to find delta T. So if you write it, delta T is equal to pi square EI upon LE square, the first term is same. Now the second term would be 1 by E alpha into area cross section. So you can see that you know pi, and it is given E value, I value, because it is square cross section of side P given. So you know I value your LE, because LE is equal to L because both ends are fixed. Your E value is given, alpha value is there, area cross section is given. You just put the value, and the temperature that we obtained is around 1 degree. So you need to just 1 degree Celsius or 1 degree K. Sorry, not degree, 1 K. So this is your solution for Euler buckling. So in Euler, if anyone has any doubt, please ask, because these are the things. Just conclude it. In Euler, you can get a question that is coupled with thermal expansion, that can be coupled with obtaining the from the stress strain diagram, obtain the value of E, then go with Euler buckling, or you can get with just what we say. You need to find the I minimum, then you can go with that. Anything can be possible. Slenderness ratio can be obtained, length can be obtained, and area of cross section can be obtained. Critical load can be obtained. So all the things are given. You need to find only one thing. So that was the case of Euler buckling. Now I am going with a strain energy. The term that is remained strain energy. So I am giving you 1 minute. If anyone has any doubt, please ask me. Hello. If anyone has any doubt, please ask me. If you have any doubt, please write it. Hello. Yeah, someone asked about the last sum. So consider a prismatic straight beam of length L, 5 meter, pinned at both ends. This is the question he is asking, or she is asking. The Young modulus is given, coefficient of thermal minimum temperature rise to cause a buckling in the. So you know that when temperature is rise, temperature will rise, the rod will elongate. So, but you know that both ends are constrained. That will they cannot move. So they will tend to cause the buckle in the rod in this way. Okay. Now this buckling need to be undertaken because the compressive force. I just explained you. Suppose this is your constrained position of a thermal expansion, and if a temperature rise is there, then it will tend to increase the length of the section. But a compressive load is acting to resist the change in the cross section or the length. So suppose this should be your change in length, but additionally a P force is acting that is trying to reduce the length by the same amount, and that is PL by AE. So if you just add it, you can get the P is equal to P by A is equal to E alpha delta T, and that is the stress. So this was your earlier condition. Now I am utilizing the same concept. I am here doing is, if you just increase the temperature, a stress or force is developed that is equal to E alpha delta T into area. Okay. Now for the Euler buckling, the same force will tend to cause the buckle. So what is the buckling load? Pi square EI upon LE square. So LE is equal to L for this condition. Now you know value of E, that is given 200 gigapascal. Your value of I, because it is 6 mm, so you can get 1 by 12, 6 cube. Area is given, that is 6 square. Your delta T you need to find, alpha is given. So everything is given except that delta T. You can just substitute it like this way, and you can get delta T is equal to 1 degree Celsius. So is it okay? Okay. Now I am going with okay. Now I am going with some questions from strain energy. So I think it is from strain energy. So it is given two threaded bolt A and B of same material and length are subjected to tensile load. If the elastic strain energy is stored in A is 4 times that of B, and mean diameter is given. What is the mean diameter of B? So first of all, length is same, material is same. They are given. So first of all, your energy formula, let me write it like, strain energy is equal to half into stress into strain. So this strain energy is per unit volume. So we need to take care of the volume, because here it is given diameter is changing. So you need to take care of the volume also, because in that volume portion the strain energy is stored. But if volume is held constant, that is length and your area of cross section is same, that this volume term will not come. So I would write it like sigma square by 2e into A into L. Now this is your strain energy. It is given that length is same, material is same, and loaded with the same tensile load. So sigma same, E same, and your L is same. Now that means strain energy is directly proportional to area of cross section and is directly proportional to diameter square. Now strain energy in A. So I am writing like SE in A by SE in B, and that is given four times, and that is equal to mean diameter of bolt A is given 12. So it is 12 square upon dB square. So you can get that, and your dB value would be, so 36. I think 36.7. Okay. Now this is a question that is half into stress into strain to volume. So whenever the wall length and area cross section is constant, you don't consider volume, and generally we don't consider volume. But whenever the question came that asked about the strain energy whole stored around the whole body, that we consider the volume also. For a ductile material, the toughness is a measure of. So I just explain you what is resilience, what is temperature, what is toughness. So toughness is ability to absorb energy up to fracture, because it is the area under the whole stress strain curve. So suppose this is your area under whole stress strain curve. So this is your area, and this is equal to the toughness. Okay. Now this is your toughness value. Ability to absorb energy up to fracture. Now resistance to scratching is called hardness, and ability to absorb energy up to fracture is called toughness. Ability to absorb energy to elastic limit is called resilience. Okay, and resistance to indentation is also called hardness. Okay, both the things that is given. Now next question is, a cantilever beam of length L and fracture rigidity EI is subjected to a point load at free end. The strain energy due to bending is, so it is given like this. The question is given like this. So this is your strain energy given P load, and length is L, EI, everything is given. You need to find the strain. So first of all, what is the equation that I told for bending is integral m square dx upon 2 EI. Okay. Now suppose you take any section X from here. What is the m? What is the bending moment at any section X? That is m equal to minus P into X. Why minus sign is coming? Because it is acting, and that would tend to what we can say, if we just put it like this, because it is creating a hogging moment. So that's why it is written negative sign. Now if you just put m value, P square x square dx upon 2 EI 0 to L. Okay. Now if you just integrate from 0 to L, your value would be P square upon 2 EI constant, that will go outside, x cube by 3, and your limit would be 0 to L, and its value is P square L cube upon 6 EI. So your value is P square L cube upon 6 EI. Now in 2 marks question, what they asked is, just give me a second. So it is given a stepped shaft, torque is given, modulus of rigidity is given, strain energy they asked, and every so you can see that just okay. Now you can see that torque is given. I explained you earlier how to solve these questions. So you need to obtain the strain energy in the individual cross section, and then you sum up the energy. Okay, now this torque is happening, and this is your area of cross section. Your I is also changing. So what we need to do is we just split the component like this. First component, second component. A torque T is acting in this way, so opposite moment will act to balance the, what we say, to produce a static equilibrium. Now this T is acting, so it will need to apply Newton's third law, action and reaction concept. Summation of torque should be 0 at this point, so that need to be here in this way, and it should be in this way. Now this is your first body, this is your second body. Strain energy is equal to SE1 plus SE2. Now this torque is same for everything, 10 here, 10 here, 10 this, and 10 this. Now you know torque, so you can apply integral t square dx upon 2 cj, or you can directly write it at t square, because torque is constant along the length, so you can directly integrate it like t square j upon t square l upon 2 cj. Now this is for the first body and for the second body. Okay, now you can just change the value of j, change the value of l. Torque is same, so you can write, and material is also same, so you can directly write t square upon 2c into length is also same. Now 1 by j1 plus 1 by j2. So this is a term, you can write it and put the value of t, l, c, j1 and j2, because j1 and j2 are the different thing, and you can get the answer. So what would be the answer? Let me just, I can get answer for this. So the answer would come is around 1.73 Newton per mm. So it is around 1.73. Just put the value of J1 and J2. Both are different only for this condition, so you can directly get the answer. Now the strain energy is stored in the beam with flexural rigidity EI and loaded with. So what is the strain energy stored in this bar? They are asking about this. So for this question, what we need to do is same thing. Just put it like this way, and your P and P are acting at different points. Now if we just move from up to L, the only no load is acting, means no force is acting. So up to L nothing is there, but after that it is only this force is acting, and after that on two forces are acting. So your strain energy that I would write it 0 to L m square dx upon 2 EI, and you know the we can split the integration. So what we will do is, actually it is 4L. So we can write it like 0 to L m square dx upon 2 EI plus integral L to 2L m square dx upon 2 EI plus integral L 2L2, what we say, L to 2L is L to 3L, sorry, just wait a sec, L to 3L, and your 3L2 4L, it is m square dx upon 2 EI. Okay, now your m for this value is 0, so this term will go out. For m for this value is p into x, only p force is acting here, so p into x, and here also for it is p into x. So if you just substitute it and put the values, you can get the answer, and the answer is about let me solve it. So I would like to write like this: p square upon 2 EI x square upon it is x cube upon 6 integral L to 3L plus p square upon 2 EI x cube upon 3 x cube upon 3 integral what is the limit, 4L to 3L. Now if you just substitute it, it is around 27 minus 126 by 3, so 13 p square L cube upon 3 EI plus, and the next term is 4, just let me check. So 4 is 64 minus 37. It is 37 around, plus this is around, so then the value is 37 p square L cube upon what we say 6 EI. 6 EI. Now 13 to the 26 and 26 plus 47 is 73. I think something is getting wrong because answer is not coming. But the trick is in the same way like it only. So you can get it and somewhere in your book, but my answer is something getting wrong here. So okay, the procedure is same, but the values are not coming like this. So this is your next question. Now the question for the strain rosette that I am asked that we discussed today. So this is one of the question. So first of all, it is given. It is given that your strain rosette at 0 degree, at 45 degree, and your 90 degree, E0, E45 and E90 is given, and this is called rectangular rosette. So this is a rectangular rosette. Okay. Now you need to find the maximum shear stress at a point. Okay. So these are the values given for the 3 strain gauges, and you need to find the maximum what we say maximum shear stress. Okay. Now I just explained you earlier how we can find the maximum shear stress. For that we need to know the sigma 1, sigma 2, and we can just take tau max is equal to sigma 1 minus sigma 2 by 2. This is your value, and these are principal stresses. So for principal stresses, you know how to find principal stresses. Principal stresses, the equation is I just explained earlier. Sigma 1 is equal to E epsilon 2 mu square, sorry, epsilon 2 mu minus epsilon 1 upon 1 minus mu square, just some formula like this, and sigma 2 is equal to E epsilon 1 mu plus epsilon 2 upon 1 minus mu square. So that was the expression. So for that we need to know sigma 1 and sigma 2, and sigma 1 and sigma 2 can be obtained when epsilon x, epsilon y and gamma xy is known, and for that we need to use the equation of the E theta, that is at 0 degree, at 45 degree and at 90 degree. Okay, so these 3 values are known. So that's how we will proceed. So first of all, we can write it. So 2 things are known. First of all, E0 represents the epsilon x, E90 represents epsilon y. If you just put the value, I'm writing directly. So you can just go epsilon x, that is given around 400 into 10 raised to the power minus 6. That is your E0. Your epsilon y is given 200 into 10 raised to the power minus 6. That is your epsilon 90. Now you need to find epsilon 45. And if you just put the formula, use the formula that is given, that I used to use in the morning, it is given just epsilon x plus epsilon y by 2. Epsilon x plus epsilon y by 2 plus epsilon x minus epsilon y by 2 cos 2 theta plus gamma xy by 2 sin 2 theta. So if we just put 2 theta, so theta is equal to 45. So if you put 2 theta, then it would be 0. Okay. Now that is given. This value you know this value is given around 375 into 10 raised to the power minus 6. So this is 375 into 10 raised to the power minus 6. This value is also epsilon x and epsilon y, that is given E theta and E90. So 400 plus 200 into 10 raised to the power minus 6 divided by 2 and plus gamma xy by 2 that we need to obtain, and sine 2 theta is 1 because theta is equal to 45, so it is 90, that is 1. Now what would be the value? So just a couple of seconds. It is around 150. So gamma xy is given 150 into 10 raised to the power minus 6. So your three values are known now. Epsilon x, that is given around, what is epsilon x? 400 into the power minus 6. So 400 into 10 raised to the power minus 6. Epsilon y is given around 200 into 10 raised to the power minus 6. And your gamma xy is given 150 into 10 raised to the power minus 6. Now three things are known. We can draw the Mohr circle and obtain the principal stresses. So what would be the principal stresses? So the principal stresses that epsilon we can get 1 is equal to epsilon x plus epsilon y by 2 plus under root. I can also go with Mohr circle, but this is the same thing. You can go with this only also, plus gamma xy by 2 whole square. I only substitute values from the principal stresses as sigma, I represented sigma x with epsilon x, sigma y with epsilon y, and tau xy with gamma xy by 2. Only replace these values with this value and you will get epsilon 1. So first of all, what is epsilon 1? Now we need to find epsilon 1, that is the principal stress along the that is the principal strain, that is the maximum principal strain, and its value is 42 plus 6, that is 304 minus 6 plus 4 minus 2, that is 2, so this is a square. So 4 minus 2, that is 1, so 100, and 10 to the power minus 6 would be outside, 100 square plus that is 150, it is 75 square. So this was your earlier case. So just solve it. 100 square plus 75 square plus 300. It is around 425. So your E1 is known. E1 is given 425 into 10 raised to the power minus 6. This is your maximum principal strain. Okay. Now you need to find the minimum principal strain, and minimum principal strain epsilon 2 is only what is the difference is you can take minus sign in place of plus sign, and that would be the principal strain in the opposite direction, and that would be around 175 into 10 raised to the power minus 6. Now you know both things, so you can just substitute the in sigma 1 formula, that is E upon E mu epsilon 2 plus epsilon 1 upon 1 minus mu square, and sigma 2 is given E mu epsilon 1 plus epsilon 2 upon 1 minus mu square. Okay, so you can put the value, you can get the epsilon sigma 1 and sigma 2, that is the principal stresses along 1 and 2 direction, that is maximum principal stress and minimum principal stress. So E value is given and mu value is given in the above equation. E value and mu value, it is given. So your E value is your sigma 1, that is a maximum principal stress, that is given around 100 megapascal, and your minimum principal stress is given around 60 megapascal. Now you know maximum and minimum principal stress. So tau maximum is given, you know the formula, maximum and minimum divided by 2, and that value is 100 minus 60, that is 40 divided by 2, that is 20 megapascal. So this was your answer for this condition of strain Dowsett. So this is a quite big problem. So these problems will not ask in exam, but up to certain levels, that just like find the maximum principal stress or minimum principal stress they can ask, or up to maximum principal strain or minimum principal strain they can ask. So just a few things that I want to make you understand in stress and strain is just a few things only. So stress and strain. Okay, and now If anyone has any problem in between, you can ask. If any doubt, you can ask. I will explain that. Okay. So you can write in chat box or unmute yourself. So in a stress, your Mohr circle is like in x-axis, your Mohr circle, your x-axis is sigma, that is your axial means axial stress, normal stress. Your y-axis is tau. Someone's question. Uh, okay, someone asked how to find the principal strain. Okay, I will get to that to you. You will understand it from here only. Now for Mohr circle of strain, you know your x-axis is your normal strain and your y-axis is your gamma xy by 2. So why I'm writing gamma xy? It is gamma, sorry. Every time I write gamma xy. Gamma by 2. Okay. Now what the Mohr circle represent like this. This is your sigma. This is your means tau xy or tau. This is for this strain. It is epsilon. It is gamma by 2. Okay. Now so if I have a condition, suppose I have a condition like this: sigma 1, sigma 2, and a shear stress is acting like this way. So we need to draw the Mohr circle. So Mohr circle would represent like this. So if this was your configuration and this is was your circle. Now for this condition, suppose it is given your epsilon 1, that is given, epsilon 2 is given, and some gamma xy strain is given. Okay. Now you take the half value here because it is given divided by 2, and you draw the same Mohr circle like this. Okay. Now here, if you just obtain the radius, what is radius? First of all, what is radius? Radius is given. So this is your sigma 1. This is your, sorry, this is your sigma 2. This is your sigma 1. So your radius is at about this value is sigma 1 minus sigma 2 by 2. Okay. This value is this and this value is tau. So your radius is under root of sigma 1 minus sigma 2 by 2 whole square plus tau square. And similarly replace everything just like sigma 1 with epsilon and sigma 2 with epsilon 2 and tau with gamma by 2. Your radius would be under root of epsilon x minus epsilon y by 2 whole square plus gamma xy by 2 whole square. This is your radius. So just represent both. I am doing what I am doing in that way. Here you have maximum principal stress. This is your minimum principal stress. This is your minimum principal stress. This is your maximum principal stress. Here this is your minimum principal strain. This is your maximum principal strain. Okay. Now what is the coordinate of center? Can anyone remember how I write coordinate of center? So you know this value is sorry, I should write here only. You know this value is sigma 2. This value is sigma 1 up to this point. So if I just, so this value would be, that is half of the whole sigma 1 minus sigma 2 by 2. And if I add this value with this value, the whole value would be, I am writing here, sigma 1 minus sigma 2 by 2 plus sigma 2. Your value would be sigma 1 plus sigma 2 by 2. Okay. Now your this value means this center value, that center, your center is at sigma 1 plus sigma 2 by 2 comma 0. This is the y coordinate. Here the center value is, just wait a second. Here your center value is epsilon x minus epsilon y, sorry, plus y by 2 comma 0. Okay. Now just so there are few things. If you know the center and you know the radius, can you obtain the maximum and minimum position? So this so let me change the pen. So this is your minimum principal strain and this is your maximum principal stress, sorry, minimum principal stress and maximum principal stress. So for minimum principal stress, your distance is your coordinate of center, you know, you subtract the radius, you can get the minimum principal stress. So coordinate of center, you know, this one is a coordinate of center, and I am going to subtract the radius. Okay, and your R value is written here. Here, what is the minimum principal strain? You know the coordinate of center. So minimum principal strain is here. So if I know the coordinate of center, I will subtract the radius. Okay. So any value from this axis can be known, because up to here, the value is known, that is epsilon x plus epsilon y by 2 comma 0. Your radius value is known. So you can just subtract it and you get the minimum principal strain. So minimum principal strain is center, that is epsilon x plus epsilon y by 2 minus r. Okay. Now maximum principal stress. That is, your center point coordinate is known. You need to find this coordinate. Just add the value of r, because you know r value. So just add value to sigma 1 plus sigma 2 by 2 plus r. And for here, the maximum principal strain is this point. So you know the center coordinate. You just add the value of r. You can get the value as epsilon x plus epsilon y by 2 plus r. So I hope now it is clear to you. Just someone who asked, what is the value, how we obtained? Hello. Someone asked how we obtained minimum principal strain. So this is your formula. Hello. Okay. I hope now this is clear to you. So just I'm writing it like this: sigma 1 comma 2. What is 1 comma 2? It is maximum and it is minimum principal stress. I am writing it like sigma 1 plus sigma 2, or write sigma x upon sigma y by 2 plus minus under root of sigma x plus sigma y by 2 whole square plus tau square. Now what is the meaning of this? If you take plus, if you take first x, one value, that is maximum, so take plus sign. If you take second value, take negative sign. Okay. Now what is epsilon 1 2? That is maximum and minimum principal strain. That is epsilon x plus epsilon y by 2 plus minus under root of epsilon x minus epsilon y by 2 whole square plus gamma xy by 2 whole square. Okay. So if you take the first value, it is maximum principal strain. So take plus sign. If you take the minimum value, then this is minus, this is what we say, negative. Now what is maximum shear stress? Maximum shear stress is radius of the circle. You just need to know maximum shear stress is radius of the circle. Okay, radius of circle. Oh, sorry. This is your radius of circle. Now what is radius of circle? You know that is r, that is given by under root of sigma x plus sigma y by 2 whole square plus tau xy whole square. Now sometimes I use the term maximum shear stress as sigma 1 minus sigma 2 by 2. Now here sigma 1 and sigma 2 are principal stresses. This is not your principal stress. Your principal stress is only those stresses where shear stress is 0. But here your shear stress is present. So if you write it like sigma 1 minus sigma 2 by 2, let me write it like this. I am writing like sigma 1 minus sigma 2 by 2. Now what is the value of sigma 1? Epsilon x plus y epsilon. So just a couple of seconds, you will clearly understand how to find. So I used to write this value or this value. Both values are correct. How they are correct? These are not the principal stresses. These are the principal stresses. So this is your principal stress. Okay. The radius of the circle is the maximum shear stress. But we can write it like also in this form. Now, how we will do that? So first of all, the value of sigma 1 is sigma x plus sigma y by 2 plus under root of something. I would write it like r. Okay. I will not write the complete sense. It is r. and now negative of. So what is sigma 2? Sigma x plus sigma y by 2 minus r divided by 2. Now just open the value, open the bracket. You can get cancel this term and minus plus. So this is r plus r divided by 2. That is r. Your r value is only this. Sorry, your r value is your this value. So you are getting now what why I am writing that and that in both ways. So radius of the circle is maximum shear stress. Okay, now you can see that from the circle that this is your radius. So this is your maximum shear stress. Okay, now that maximum shear stress is also tau max is also sigma 1 minus sigma 2 by 2, and it is also radius, and it is also equal to under root of sigma x plus sigma y by 2 whole square plus tau xy square. So these are principal stresses. These are stresses where tau xy is present. So both are different thing. That's why both are written in this form. I hope now it is clear to you. Just please respond. It is clear to you. Hello. Hello. Okay. Now one more thing. From the same consideration where I just obtained here, let me write for the strains also. So the same thing. I represent tau. I represent tau xy as gamma xy by 2. I would resemble these things as like this way. So maximum, so gamma xy by 2 maximum, that is equal to radius of the circle. I am writing like this. Okay, I am going from here to here. And now what is the radius of the circle? Radius of the circle is under root of epsilon x plus epsilon y by 2 whole square plus plus gamma xy by 2 whole square. Okay, this is your radius of the circle. So you can also write it like gamma xy by 2 maximum is equal to epsilon 1 minus epsilon 2 by 2. You can also write in that way. Now why I am writing that? Because this is radius, and if you just put it like this way, so I am writing it like epsilon x plus epsilon y by 2 plus r minus epsilon x plus epsilon y by 2 minus r divided by 2. Now you can cancel these terms, and minus plus r, it is 2r by 2, that is r. Now you are getting the same expression. That's why you can write it like this way. You can write it like this way. But these are the principal strains, and these are the strains where gamma xy is present. So you cannot use this formula for this. So these are two different formulas yielding the same result. So depend on the condition. If you had given sigma x, sigma y, and tau xy, use the formula of this. But if you have given only sigma x and sigma y and no shear stress, that means they are already on principal planes, and these are principal stresses. Okay, what I had said, if you had given any problem like this way, sigma x, sigma y, that means there is no any shear stress, hence they are already on principal planes. So you can directly write it like tau max is equal to sigma x minus sigma y by 2 for this condition only, when there is no shear stress. But if there is shear stress, you go with this formula. That is the difference. When shear stress is not given, that means they are already on the principal planes, and principal planes means when there is no shear stress present. So same thing here also. If it is only given epsilon x, epsilon y, you can directly use gamma xy by 2 is equal to epsilon x minus epsilon y by 2. But when gamma xy is given, when it is given, you cannot write. This is your maximum. So if it is given, you cannot use this formula. I hope now this is clear to you, because these are little confusing to you. How does I made comparison with the stresses and strains. So these are the few things. So 15 minutes left. Any doubt to anyone? Up to Som, any question, any problem in the question?